right. Too close.
Okay, we've been studying about Ezekiel. Actually, we're studying about the time when the children of Israel were carried away to Babylon, specifically those who lived in the land of Judah. Were carried to Babylon as captives, and the Bible gives us stories from several of the people. It's contained in the part of the Bible we call the major prophets. We're doing Ezekiel right now. He was a contemporary of Daniel. And Jeremiah, actually. Bit of trivia. What is actually the longest book in the Bible?
Jeremiah.
Most people would say, we've discussed this before here, most people say Psalms because it has the most chapters, but Jeremiah actually has the most verses. But anyway, Ezekiel had his vision we talked about last week, where he saw God's glory, and God told him he was making him a watchman, and he was to deliver his message, whether the people listened to him or not. That wasn't his business. His business was to do what he was told. God took Ezekiel to a valley filled with dry bones. Now, my flannel does not come with dry bones. So use your imagination. We have dry bones filling the valley. A lot of dead people here. I think this is probably a vision that Ezekiel had, but it is possible God could have taken him to a physical valley, physically filled with dry bones, to perform this miracle. It was probably just a vision. The Bible doesn't make it really clear, actually. And it doesn't actually matter because that's not the point. The point is, God spoke to Ezekiel and he said, Ezekiel, you see all those dead, dry bones out there? They've been dead a long time because they're all dried out. Do you think those bones can live again? Now, Ezekiel was a wise man. He didn't say, oh no, God, that's impossible. He said, well, God, I think you're the only one who really knows that. And God said, okay, I have something for you to do. I want you to go preach to those bones, and I want you to tell them to get up, that they are going to live. So Ezekiel said, you know, God told me it's not my business what happens when I do what he tells me to. I'm just to do what he tells me to. So he went to the valley, and he spoke to the bones, and he told them, God is going to bring you back to life. Get up from there. And then there was a loud noise, and all the bones assembled themselves into skeletons. And then muscles grew on the skeletons, and then skin grew on the muscles. And then we had a whole valley, and this is another thing my flannel is lacking on, is we're not really good at dead people.
Well, first, the first zombie apocalypse, great.
Yeah. Then the valley was full of dead people who weren't just dry bones. They had skin and flesh and muscle and everything, but they were still dead. God said, Ezekiel, I want you now, I don't want you to keep preaching to the dead bones. I want you to talk to the wind. I want you to tell the wind to breathe life into those bodies. Okay, whatever you say, God. At this point, how could you not? The bones are now bodies, so. He tells the wind, four corners of the wind, come breathe life into these bodies. And when he did, they stood up. And the Bible says they were a mighty army. That's my mighty army. Okay, today's the day to complain about my flannel. I love my flannel, but their armies are a little shy of people. The bones became an army filling the valley. God said the point of this is that your fellow Israelites, both from Israel and Judah, are saying Israel is dead. The children of Jacob are never going to be a nation again. We're destroyed, we're scattered, we're gone. That's it. Kaput. But I say, I will bring your country back to life. You will be a united country again. You will be as alive as that army. He then told Ezekiel, I want you to take 2 sticks, and I want you to write the name Judah on one and Israel on one. And then I want you to hold them in your hand and make them 1 stick. Translation note, some translations say that God melded them together so they actually were 1 stick. Some translations say that Ezekiel held them in his hand as if they were 1 stick. And the Hebrew is unclear. I like that he made it into 1 stick. Doesn't really matter. The point is, they are now 1 stick visually. And in that way, God was going to unify Israel and Judah, that had been 2 separate countries for several hundred years. He was going to unify them once again as 1 country. They wouldn't be divided any longer. We know that 70 years after this, Cyrus the Great gave the command that Israel would go back, all descendants of Jacob would go back to their homeland. He even gave them money to build the temple back. Afterwards, we have the time of Alexander the Great, and after Alexander died, when his kingdom was split up, Ptolemy, one of his generals, took Egypt. And one of Ptolemy's projects was to gather all the writings of the world, translate them into Greek, and store them in his library he built in Alexander's city in Egypt called Alexandria. He sent messengers to Judah and said, you know what, I want your copies of your famous writings, your law and your other writings. I want you to send me scholars that will translate them into Greek so I can have them for my library. History, not the Bible, but history tells us that the land of Judah sent 72 scholars, 6 from each tribe, to Ptolemy to translate the Hebrew writings into Greek. We call these writings the Septuagint, which is Hebrew for 70. To this day, it is one of the most ancient copies of the Old Testament that we have today. This is secular proof. All 12 tribes went back to Judah and were reunited as 1 country, just like God said that he was going to do. So it was a fulfillment of prophecy. So God fulfilled his prophecies to Ezekiel. He gave his people hope. It would be many years before this happened. None of them would be alive before Ptolemy. And a lot of them wouldn't make it to the 70 years when they actually went back. But it still happened because God said it would. Let's sing our song.
I look for dim bones and dry bones, but I don't think I have them.
Okay.
Praises us through this.
Yeah. The B-I-B-L-E. Yes, that's the book for me. I stand upon the Word of God. The B-I-B-L-E. The B-L-O-O-D. That Jesus shed for me. I sit alone on the cornerstone. The B-L-O-O-D.